The desert can be beautiful at sunset, they say. But all I could see was death as I watched my husband's truck disappear into the burning horizon, leaving nothing but a trail of dust and betrayal in its wake. The temperature was already dropping, and I had nothing but my phone with a dying battery and the clothes on my back. How did I end up here? How did 5 years of marriage culminate in being abandoned on Route 89A between Sedona and Flagstaff, all because I refused to sign away my grandmother's ranch? The events of the last hour played through my mind like a broken record as I stood there, the harsh Arizona wind whipping sand against my bare arms. I could still hear Nathan's voice, cold and unrecognizable. "Sign the papers, Becca. Sign them now, or I swear to God, you'll regret it." When I refused, he pulled over, reached across me to open my door and ordered me out. I thought he was bluffing. He had to be bluffing. But the screech of tires on asphalt and the cloud of red dust that followed proved me wrong. The sun was sinking fast behind the distant mesas, painting the sky in deceptively beautiful shades of purple and orange. I checked my phone again. Still no signal. Out here, between the towering red rocks and endless desert, I might as well have been on another planet. The irony wasn't lost on me that the land I'd refused to give up might very well be the death of me. I started walking, my heels already beginning to blister inside my impractical shoes. I hadn't dressed for a desert trek when we left Tucson this morning. I dressed for what I thought would be a simple meeting with our lawyer, wearing my favorite navy blue dress and the pearl earrings Nathan had given me for our 3rd anniversary. Now those pearls felt like they were choking me. As darkness crept in, the desert came alive with unfamiliar sounds. The haunting call of a coyote in the distance, the rustle of creatures in the scrubland beside the road. Every shadow made my heart race. Every sound sent a shiver down my spine. But I kept walking, one foot in front of the other, my mind drifting back to how this nightmare began. 3 months ago, my grandmother Rose passed away, leaving me her beloved ranch in Sedona. It wasn't just any property. It was 20 acres of pristine land with a historic ranch house that had been in our family for generations. I'd spent every summer there as a child, learning to ride horses, helping Grandma Rose tend to her garden, and listening to her stories about the old days. The land was worth millions now, but to me, it was priceless. Nathan had seemed supportive at first, even excited about our potential future there. But something changed after the reading of the will. He became obsessed with the property's value, constantly talking about developers who were interested in building luxury resorts. At first, he tried to convince me it was the sensible thing to do. Sell the land, invest the money, secure our future. When that didn't work, he started pressuring me to at least transfer partial ownership to him. For tax purposes, he'd said, to protect our interests. I'd noticed other changes too. Late-night phone calls he'd take outside, mysterious meetings with business associates, and a growing distance between us that I couldn't seem to bridge. But nothing had prepared me for this. For the moment, my husband's mask completely slipped away, revealing a stranger beneath. The sound of an approaching vehicle snapped me back to the present. I turned, hope rising in my chest, only to have it crushed as the car sped past without slowing. My feet were bleeding now, my phone dead, and the temperature was dropping rapidly. The desert night was claiming its territory, and I was an unwelcome intruder. Just as despair began to overwhelm me, I saw headlights approaching again, slower this time. I hesitated, remembering every warning I'd ever heard about getting into cars with strangers. But right now, a stranger seemed far less dangerous than the man I'd trusted with my life for the past 5 years. The vehicle, an old Ford pickup, slowed to a stop beside me. An elderly couple peered out, concern etched on their weathered faces. "You all right, honey?" the woman asked, her voice reminding me so much of Grandma Rose that tears sprang to my eyes. Nobody should be out here walking at this hour. I looked at them, John and Susan, they would later introduce themselves as. and made a decision that would change everything. As I climbed into their truck, accepting Susan's offered bottle of water and John's kind smile, I realized something. This wasn't the end of my story. This was just the beginning. Later that night, safe in Ashley's downtown Tucson apartment, I sat on her couch wrapped in a borrowed blanket, my feet bandaged, trying to make sense of it all. My best friend hadn't asked many questions when I called from John and Susan's phone, asking her to pick me up from the gas station where they'd dropped me off. She took one look at my tear-stained face and bloody feet and simply said, "He's dead. Just tell me where to hide the body." That made me laugh for the first time in what felt like years, even as fresh tears rolled down my cheeks. But Ashley wasn't entirely joking. I could see the fury in her eyes, the protective instinct of a friendship that stretched back to our college days. "I should call the police," I said, staring into the mug of tea she'd pressed into my hands. "Damn right you should," Ashley replied, already reaching for her phone. "He left you to die in the desert, Becca. That's attempted murder in my book." But something stopped me, a nagging suspicion that this wasn't just about the ranch anymore. Nathan's behavior had been too calculated, too extreme. There was something else going on, something I was missing. "Not yet," I said finally, surprising both Ashley and myself. "First, I need to understand what's really happening. This isn't just about the property, there's more to it, and I'm going to find out what it is." Ashley looked at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Okay," she said, sitting down beside me. "Then we'll figure it out together. But you're not going back to him, Becca. Promise me that." I touched my throat where the pearl necklace had been. I'd torn it off somewhere between the gas station and Ashley's apartment, leaving a trail of perfect white spheres like breadcrumbs in the night. "No," I said, my voice stronger than I expected. "I'm not going back, but I'm not running away either. Whatever Nathan's planning, whatever he thought he would accomplish today, he picked the wrong woman to underestimate." As I finally drifted off to sleep on Ashley's couch, my grandmother's words echoed in my mind. "The land knows its own, Rebecca. It will always protect those who respect it." I hadn't understood what she meant back then, but as I closed my eyes, the memory of the desert sunset still burning behind my eyelids, I began to understand. The land had protected me today, sending John and Susan when I needed them most. And tomorrow, it would help me find the truth. My phone was charging on Ashley's kitchen counter, and before I fell asleep, I'd seen the notifications start rolling, in missed calls and messages from Nathan, each more frantic than the last. He didn't know I was safe. He didn't know I had survived. He didn't know that his attempt to break me had only made me stronger. Tomorrow, I would begin piecing together the puzzle. Tomorrow, I would start fighting back. But tonight, I let myself feel it all. The fear, the betrayal, the anger, and beneath it all, a steely determination that surprised me with its intensity. Nathan thought he could bury my inheritance in the desert along with my spirit. He was about to learn just how wrong he was. Like the ancient saguaros that dotted the landscape where he'd left me, I had deep roots and the strength to survive in the harshest conditions. This was my land, my legacy, and I would defend it with everything I had. The desert hadn't claimed me today. Instead, it had forged me into something stronger, something that would rise from the red dust like a phoenix, ready to reclaim everything that was rightfully mine. The morning light streaming through Ashley's apartment windows felt surreal, like I was waking up in someone else's life. My feet still throbbed from my desert ordeal, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the ache in my chest. I checked my phone. 27 missed calls from Nathan, 15 text messages, and 3 voicemails. I couldn't bring myself to listen to them yet. Ashley was already up, making coffee in her tiny kitchen. The familiar aroma helped ground me in reality. "I called the gallery," she said, handing me a steaming mug. Told Kevin you had a family emergency. Kevin Matthews, my boss at the Tucson Art Gallery, was understanding to a fault. I made a mental note to thank him properly later. We need a plan, Ashley continued, sitting across from me at her breakfast bar. And before you say anything about handling this yourself, remember that your husband literally left you to die in the desert yesterday. You're not doing this alone. She was right, of course. The magnitude of what Nathan had done was still sinking in. The man I'd shared my bed with for 5 years, the man who'd held me through my grandmother's funeral, had abandoned me on a desert highway because I wouldn't sign away my inheritance. The betrayal was so complete, it felt almost absurd. First things first, I said, trying to organize my thoughts. I need to understand what Nathan's really after. This can't just be about the ranch. There has to be more. Ashley nodded, pulling out her laptop. Well, let's start with what we know.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
When exactly did things start changing with Nathan? I closed my eyes, thinking back. It was right after Grandma Rose's will reading. He seemed disappointed, but not surprised, like he'd been expecting something different. What exactly did the will say? Ashley asked, fingers poised over her keyboard. The ranch, the land, everything goes to me. There were some specific conditions, though. The property can't be sold or developed commercially for at least 10 years after her death. Grandma was passionate about preserving the land. Ashley's eyes narrowed. And Nathan knew about these conditions? He was there at the reading. He tried to hide it, but I remember how his jaw tightened when the lawyer read that part. A memory suddenly surfaced. Nathan on his phone immediately after the reading, walking away to have what seemed like an intense conversation. At the time, I'd assumed he was sharing the news with his family. Becca, Ashley said slowly, what if Nathan had already promised the land to someone? What if he'd made deals assuming he'd have control over the property? The thought hit me like a physical blow. It made a terrible kind of sense. Nathan worked in real estate development. He had connections, made deals. What if he'd leveraged my inheritance before it was even mine? I need to see those papers he wanted me to sign, I said. The ones he was trying to force me to sign yesterday. Do you have copies? I shook my head. They're at the house, along with everything else I own. Ashley's expression hardened. Then we need to get them. Is Nathan at work today? I checked the time. He should be. His office is downtown, and he never misses a Monday meeting. Perfect. We'll go to your house, get what you need, and you can pack some clothes while we're at it. She held up a hand as I started to protest. I'm coming with you, non-negotiable. An hour later, we pulled up to my house, the beautiful craftsman-style home Nathan and I had bought 2 years ago. It looked exactly the same as when I'd left it yesterday morning, but it felt different. Foreign. Like a stage set where a tragedy had been performed. My hands shook as I unlocked the front door. The house was silent, but I could feel Nathan's presence in every room. His coffee mug still in the sink, his jacket thrown over a kitchen chair. I headed straight for his home office while Ashley kept watch. The papers weren't hard to find. They were right there on his desk, waiting for my signature. But as I picked them up, something else caught my eye. A file folder had slipped partially, behind the desk, revealing what looked like architectural renderings. I pulled it out, and my blood ran cold. They were plans for a luxury resort complex to be built on my grandmother's land. The date on the plans was from 6 months ago, 3 months before my grandmother died. Nathan had been planning this before she was even gone. Ashley, I called out, my voice shaking. You need to see this. But before Ashley could respond, I heard something that made my heart stop. The sound of a key in the front door. Nathan was home. Ashley appeared. In the doorway, her face pale. back door," she mouthed silently. But it was too late. Nathan's footsteps were already in the hallway. "Becca?" His voice was a mixture of relief and wariness. "Baby, is that you?" I shoved the plans back into the folder and clutched it along with the papers he'd wanted me to sign. There was nowhere to hide in the small office. I could hear him getting closer. "Thank God you're okay," Nathan said, appearing in the doorway. He looked terrible, like he hadn't slept. "Good." "I've been worried sick. Where have you been?" Audacity of his concern made something snap inside me. "Worried?" I said, my voice eerily calm. "You left me in the desert to die, Nathan. Were you worried then?" He had the grace to flinch, but recovered quickly. "I came back for you, Becca. I drove back as soon as I cooled down, but you were gone. I've been looking everywhere." Liar. Ashley stepped into view behind him, her phone held up. "I've got 911 ready to dial, you psychopath. Back away from her." Nathan's face hardened as he saw what I was holding. "What are you doing with those?" "Finding out the truth," I said, backing away from him. "About what you've really been planning. How long, Nathan? How long have you been plotting to steal my grandmother's land?" "You don't understand," he said, taking a step toward me. "This is bigger than you, bigger than us. There are people counting on this deal." "Don't move," Ashley warned, but Nathan ignored her. "Just give me the files, Becca. We can talk about this. I can explain everything." "Like you explained things yesterday? On the side of the road?" My back hit the wall. Nathan was between me and the door, but Ashley was still behind him. "Did you even love me? Or was I just a convenient way? To get to my grandmother's property?" Something flickered in his eyes. Guilt? Regret? But it was gone in an instant, replaced by a cold determination that made him look like a stranger. "The papers, Becca. Now." "No." I clutched the folder tighter. "I'm leaving, Nathan. Don't try to stop me." He moved so fast I barely had time to react, lunging for the folder, but Ashley was faster. She swung her purse, a heavy leather thing that I'd always teased her about, and caught him in the back of the head. Nathan stumbled, giving me the opening I needed to duck past him. I ran, the folder pressed against my chest, Ashley right behind me. We made it to her car just as Nathan came charging out of the house. "This isn't over, Becca," he shouted as Ashley peeled away from the curb. "You have no idea what you're getting into." We drove in tense silence for several blocks, my heart pounding so hard I could barely breathe. Finally, Ashley spoke. "We need to go to the police." I shook my head, opening the folder with trembling hands. "Not yet. First, I need to understand exactly what he's involved in. Look at these dates, Ashley. These plans were drawn up months before Grandma died. Nathan was planning this while she was still alive. Which means he's not working alone," Ashley finished. My thought. Someone else had to be involved. Someone who knew your grandmother's health was failing. A horrible suspicion began to form in my mind. "We need to talk to her doctor and her lawyer. Something isn't right about any of this." Ashley glanced at me, concern evident in her expression. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking my grandmother's death might not have been as natural as we believed." The words felt like poison in my mouth, but once spoken, they couldn't be taken back. And I'm thinking Nathan might have been counting on inheriting that land a lot sooner than he did. We ended up at a small cafe on the outskirts of town, spreading the papers out on a corner table. The more we dug through them, the worse it looked. There were emails between Nathan and various developers, dating back over a year, projected profit margins that made my head spin, and most disturbing of all, a series of messages about accelerating the timeline. "We need help," Ashley said finally. "Professional help. Someone who knows how to investigate this kind of thing." I nodded, my mind already working. "I know someone. Marcus Rodriguez. He's a private investigator who helped my grandmother once. Years ago, she trusted him. Can we trust him? Grandma Rose used to say he was the most honest, dishonest man she'd ever met. I managed a small smile at the memory. He might be our best chance at finding out what really happened. Ashley insisted on driving me to Marcus's office herself. It was in a shabby part of town, the kind of place that had seen better days, but held on to its dignity through sheer stubbornness. The building reminded me of Marcus himself, weathered but resilient. The office was small and cluttered, with filing cabinets lining the walls and a desk that had probably been old when Nixon was president. Marcus looked exactly as I remembered him, salt and pepper hair, kind eyes that missed nothing, and the slight paunch of someone who spent too much time sitting and thinking. "Rebecca Mitchell," he said as we walked in, not even looking up from his computer. "I was wondering when you'd show up." That caught me off guard. "You were expecting me?" Now he did look up, his expression grave. "Been keeping an eye on things. Since your grandmother passed, something didn't sit right about it. And now here you are, looking like you've seen a ghost and clutching what I'm guessing is evidence of something very ugly." I sank into one of his visitor chairs, suddenly exhausted. "How much do you know?" "I know your husband's been making some interesting friends lately. I know there were some unusual financial transactions around the time your grandmother got sick, and I know he tried to kill you yesterday." Ashley gasped, but I just nodded. Of course Marcus knew. That's why Grandma Rose had trusted him. He always knew more than he should. "Show me what you found," he said, clearing a space on his desk. For the next hour, we went through everything. The development plans, the emails, the papers Nathan had tried to force me to sign. Marcus listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes or pulling up something on his ancient computer. "Well," he said finally, leaning back in his chair, "you've stumbled into something big, Rebecca. Your husband's mixed up with some dangerous people, the kind who don't take kindly to their plans being disrupted." "What kind of people?" Ashley asked. Marcus shook his head. "The kind that make problems disappear, the kind that might arrange for an old woman's medication to be tampered with, or for a troublesome heir to have an unfortunate accident in the desert." The implications hit me like a physical blow. "They killed my grandmother," I whispered, "and Nathan. Nathan helped them do it. We can't prove that yet." Marcus's voice was gentle but firm. "But we can start pulling threads. The question is, are you ready for what we might find? Because once we start this, there's no going back. These people will know we're looking into them." I thought about my grandmother, about her love for the land she'd protected all her life. I thought about Nathan's betrayal, about the desert that had both threatened my life and somehow helped preserve it. Finally, I thought about the strength I'd found in myself since yesterday, a strength I hadn't known I possessed. "I'm ready," I said. "Whatever it takes, whatever we find, I need to know the truth. And I need to protect my grandmother's legacy." Marcus nodded, a slight smile crossing his weathered face. "Then let's get to work. First thing we need to do is get you somewhere safe, somewhere Nathan and his friends won't think to look." "She can stay with me," Ashley started, but Marcus cut her off. "Too obvious. They'll be watching your place." He pulled out a key from his desk drawer. "I've got a better idea. Your grandmother wasn't just my client, Rebecca. She was my friend. And she left something with me, just in case you ever needed it." The key looked old, its brass surface, worn smooth by time. "What is it?" "A safe house. Off the grid, out past the ranch. Rose called it her insurance policy." He slid the key across the desk to me. "I think it's time you saw what else your grandmother left you besides that land." As I picked up the key, I felt something shift inside me. Yesterday, I'd been a victim, abandoned and betrayed. Today, I was becoming something else, a hunter, seeking truth and justice. Nathan and his conspirators thought they could bury their secrets in the desert sand. They were about to learn that some secrets refuse to stay buried, and some women refuse to be broken. "One more thing," Marcus said as we stood to leave. "Your grandmother left this with me too." He handed me a sealed envelope, my name written on it in Rose's familiar handwriting. "She said to give it to you when you were ready. I think that time is now." I held the envelope, feeling its weight in my hands. Whatever was inside, whatever secrets it contained, I knew it would change everything. Again. But this time, I was ready. This time, I wasn't alone. And this time, I would be the one making others afraid of what lay hidden in the desert's endless horizons. My hands trembled as I stared at my grandmother's letter, still sealed in its weathered envelope. The desert wind howled outside Marcus's safe house, a small adobe structure tucked away in a hidden canyon beyond the main ranch property. Ashley had reluctantly gone back to town at Marcus's insistence. We needed someone on the outside, someone who could move freely without drawing attention. The safe house was simple but secure, with thick walls that kept out both the heat and prying eyes. Solar panels provided power, and a hidden well-supplied water. My grandmother had thought of everything. But why? What had she known that made her prepare this refuge? I broke the seal on the envelope, unfolding the pages within. My grandmother's elegant handwriting filled 3 pages, and as I began to read, I felt her voice as clearly as if she were sitting beside me. "My dearest Rebecca, if you're reading this, then my suspicions were correct, and you found yourself in danger. I hope you'll forgive me for not warning you more directly, but there are some truths that can only be discovered when we're ready to face them. The ranch isn't just land, Rebecca. It's so much more. Beneath the surface lies something that certain people have been trying to get their hands on for decades. Your grandfather died protecting it, and now I fear I may have met the same fate. There's a safe behind the photograph of your grandfather in the study. The combination is the date we first rode horses together. You were 7, and so fearless. Inside, you'll find everything I've discovered about the people who want our land. Be careful who you trust, my darling. They have ways of turning love into betrayal. The truth is in the water. Follow the old creek bed when the moon is full. What you find there will change everything. All my love, Grandma Rose." I sat back, my mind reeling. The letter raised more questions than it answered. What was hidden beneath the ranch? What had my grandfather died protecting? The official story was that he'd had a heart attack while riding the fence line, but now I wondered if there was more to it. A knock at the door made me jump. Marcus's distinctive pattern. 3 quick taps, a pause, then 2 more, reassured me. I let him in, noting the grave expression on his face. "We need to move fast," he said without preamble. "I've been doing some digging. Your husband's been making calls to some very interesting people since this morning. They're mobilizing." "What kind of people?" Marcus pulled out his phone, showing me a series of photographs. These were taken outside Nathan's office an hour ago. The images showed my husband meeting with 2 men in expensive suits. Even in the grainy photos, their body language screamed danger. "The one on the left is James Morrison," Marcus explained. "He's technically a real estate developer, but that's just a cover. His real business is making problems disappear. The other one is Thomas Chen. He represents a group of Chinese investors who've been trying to buy up land in this area for years." I showed him my grandmother's letter. His eyes narrowed as he read it. "The truth is in the water," he muttered. "Rose always did love her riddles. The creek bed she mentions, I know where it is. It runs behind the old ranch house, but it's been dry for years." Marcus checked his watch. "Full moon's tonight. If we're going to find whatever Rose wanted you to see, it has to be now." "But Rebecca," he caught my arm, his expression serious. We won't be the only ones out there. Nathan's friends will be watching the ranch. Then we'll have to be smarter than them. I thought for a moment. There's an old service road that connects to the back of the property. Grandma used to use it during monsoon season when the main road flooded. Most people don't even know it exists. As we prepared to leave, I changed into clothes more suitable for stealth. Dark jeans, a black sweater, sturdy boots. Marcus armed himself with what he called insurance. I decided not to ask for details. The drive to the service road was tense. Every set of headlights in the rearview mirror made my heart race, but Marcus's steady presence kept me grounded. We parked his truck behind a grove of mesquite trees and continued on foot. The desert at night was a different world. Shadows danced in the moonlight, and every rustle could have been friend or foe. We moved silently, Marcus leading the way with the expertise of someone used to staying unseen. As we approached the creek bed, I heard voices. Marcus pulled me, behind a large boulder just as flashlight beams cut through the darkness. Nathan's voice carried on the night air. It has to be here somewhere. Morrison's intel said the entrance would be visible during the full moon. Another voice, presumably Morrison's, responded. Your wife's grandmother knew something. The old woman must have left some kind of clue. I felt Marcus tense beside me. Slowly, carefully, he withdrew something from his jacket, a small drone equipped with a camera. He launched it silently, using his phone to guide it above the men, searching the creek bed. Through the drone's camera feed, I counted 5 men. Nathan, Morrison, Chen, and 2 others who looked like hired muscle. They were systematically searching the dry creek bed, their frustration growing with each passing minute. But they were looking in the wrong place. My grandmother's words echoed in my mind. Follow the old creek bed when the moon is full. They were searching the current creek bed, but I remembered something from my childhood. The creek had changed course after a major flood 15 years ago. The old creek bed was further west. I tugged on Marcus's sleeve, pointing in the right direction. He nodded, understanding. We began to move, using the desert vegetation as cover. The full moon cast enough light to see by, but also created deep shadows perfect for concealment. The old creek bed was hardly visible now, just a subtle depression in the earth that most people would miss. But as we approached, something caught my eye. A glint of metal in the moonlight, partially buried in the sandy soil. My heart pounding, I brushed away the dirt. It was a handle, attached to what looked like a trapdoor. The metal was old but well-maintained, and when I pulled, it opened smoothly on silent hinges. Below, a set of stairs led down into darkness. Marcus produced 2 small flashlights from his pack, handing one to me. Ladies first, he whispered with a slight smile. The stairs descended about 20 feet before opening into a tunnel. The air was cool and dry, and the walls were lined with what looked like old mining supports. But this was no ordinary mine. The construction was too precise, too planned. We moved carefully, aware that any sound might carry to the men above. The tunnel stretched ahead, curving slightly to the left. After about 100 yards, it opened into a larger chamber that took my breath away. The room was filled with filing, cabinets, old computers, and maps covering the walls. But what caught my attention was the large table in the center, covered with photographs and documents. Some were recent, others yellowed with age. My God, Marcus breathed, examining the materials. Your grandmother was running an investigation. The photographs told a story. Decades of suspicious land deals, environmental violations, and what looked like evidence of money laundering. But there was something else, something that made my blood run cold. Among the recent photos were several of Nathan, taken long before I'd met him. In one, he was shaking hands with Morrison outside a building I recognized as my grandmother's lawyer's office. This wasn't a coincidence, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Nathan. He sought me out. Our whole relationship was planned. Marcus was examining a locked cabinet in the corner. "Rebecca," he said urgently, "this cabinet's different from the others, newer. And look at the label." The label read simply, "For Rebecca, when the truth comes out." Before I could respond, we heard voices echoing from the tunnel. They'd found the entrance. Marcus quickly copied as many documents as he could with his phone while I searched frantically for the key to the cabinet. "Rebecca!" Nathan's voice echoed through the tunnel. "I know you're down here. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." The key had to be here somewhere. My grandmother wouldn't have left this cabinet without... The necklace, my hand, flew to my throat, remembering the silver necklace my grandmother had given me on her last birthday. I'd always wondered why the pendant was so heavy. With trembling fingers, I twisted the pendant apart. A small key fell into my palm. It fit the cabinet perfectly. Inside was a single USB drive and another envelope with my name on it. I grabbed both just as flashlight beams appeared at the tunnel entrance. "This way," Marcus hissed, pulling me toward a dark corner. He pressed something on the wall and a hidden door swung open. "Your grandmother showed me this escape route years ago. Never thought I'd need it." We slipped through just as Nathan and his men entered the chamber. The passage was narrow and dusty, but it led steadily upward. After what felt like an eternity, we emerged into the desert night, several hundred yards from where we'd entered. The sounds of angry shouting echoed from below. They'd discovered the empty cabinet, but we were already running, keeping low and using the terrain for cover. By the time we made it back to Marcus's truck, my lungs were burning and my legs felt like lead. As we drove away, I clutched the USB drive and envelope to my chest. "What now?" I asked, still trying to catch my breath. "Now," Marcus said grimly. "We find out exactly what your grandmother discovered that was worth killing for, and then we make them pay." Back at the safe house, I connected the USB drive to the secure laptop Marcus had provided. What we found made everything else seem trivial by comparison. It wasn't just about land deals or development rights. The ranch, it turned out, sat on top of something far more valuable, one of the largest undiscovered aquifers in the Southwest. But it wasn't just water. The geological surveys on the drive showed something else. Rare earth elements, crucial for modern technology, deposited in the underwater cave systems beneath the property. My grandmother had discovered this years ago but had kept it secret, knowing what would happen if the wrong people found out. The second letter explained everything. My grandmother had been gathering evidence for years, building a case against the corporation that had killed my grandfather when he refused to sell. She'd known they would come for her eventually, but she'd prepared for that too. Everything she'd discovered, every piece of evidence, every connection, it was all here, ready to be revealed. "Your grandmother," Marcus said softly, "was a force to be reckoned with." "Yes," I replied, feeling a fierce pride cut through my grief, "and so am I." As the sun began to rise over the desert, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, I made a decision. Nathan and his conspirators thought they could erase me just like they'd erased my grandparents. But they'd made a crucial mistake. They'd left me alive in the desert, thinking it would break me. Instead, it had forged me into something stronger. And now, with my grandmother's evidence and Marcus's help, I was going to make them regret every choice that had led them to this moment. The truth was in the water, just as my grandmother had said. Now it was time to make that truth come flooding out, drowning all their carefully constructed lies in its wake. The desert had taught me its most important lesson. Sometimes the most dangerous things lie hidden beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to emerge. The morning sun cast long shadows across Marcus's desk as we reviewed the evidence. My coffee had gone cold, forgotten in the shock of what we'd discovered on my grandmother's USB drive. Page after page of documented corruption, secret meetings, and carefully tracked money trails painted a picture more sinister than I'd imagined. "Look at this," Marcus said, pointing to a document on his laptop screen. 3 years ago, Morrison's company, Desert Crown Development, tried to buy the water rights to every property within 10 miles of your grandmother's ranch. When the owners refused to sell, mysterious accidents started happening. I leaned closer, scanning the newspaper clippings my grandmother had collected. Barn fires, equipment failures, a local farmer's prize bulls found dead under suspicious circumstances. Everyone who stood in Desert Crown's way had suffered until they gave in. Everyone except my grandmother. "They're going to come after me next," I said, voicing what we both knew. "They'll try to make it look like an accident, just like with Grandma Rose." Marcus nodded grimly, "Which is why we need to move fast." But first, he reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a small device. "Take this." It was a satellite phone, ruggedized and clearly expensive. "Untraceable," he explained. "And it works anywhere. If something happens, if we get separated, you call me immediately." A knock at the office door made us both freeze. Marcus moved silently to his desk drawer, where I knew he kept his insurance, but relaxed when a familiar voice called out, "Marcus, it's Ashley. Rachel's with me." Rachel Torres, my grandmother's real estate attorney, stepped into the office behind Ashley. She looked exactly as I remembered her, sharply dressed, carrying her ever-present leather briefcase, her dark hair streaked with elegant gray. But there was something different in her eyes now. Fear. "Rebecca," she said, closing the door quickly behind her. "Thank God you're all right. I've been trying to reach you since I heard about—" She trailed off, glancing at Ashley. "Since my husband tried to kill me?" I finished for her. "It's okay, Rachel, you can say it." Rachel set her briefcase on Marcus's desk with trembling hands. "There's something you need to know. Something I should have told you weeks ago, but I was afraid." She began pulling out documents. "Your grandmother. She came to see me the day before she died. She knew something was wrong with her medication. She made me promise to wait until something like this happened." My heart began to race. "What are you saying?" "The night she died, she changed her will. The version we read, the one Nathan heard, it wasn't the real one." Rachel handed me a sealed envelope. "This is." With shaking hands, I opened it. The document inside was similar to the will I remembered, with one crucial difference. There was an additional clause, triggered specifically by any attempt to forcibly transfer ownership of the ranch. In the event that any person attempts to coerce, threaten, or otherwise force the transfer of property rights, I read aloud, "All evidence collected regarding Desert Crown Development, Morrison Industries, and their associates is to be immediately released to the FBI, the Environmental Protection Agency, and specific members of the press." Marcus whistled softly. Rose had a dead man switch. "Not just that," Rachel continued, pulling out more papers. "She set up a trust. The ranch, the water rights, everything. It's all protected. Even if something happens to Rebecca, it can't be sold or developed. Not for 50 years. I sat back, stunned. My grandmother hadn't just been investigating these people. She'd been setting up an elaborate trap. And Nathan, Morrison, all of them. They'd played right into it. "There's more," Rachel said quietly. "Your grandmother asked me to give you this when the time came." She reached into her briefcase one last time and withdrew a small, leather-bound journal. The journal's pages were filled with my grandmother's handwriting, but these weren't her usual garden notes or recipe collections. These were observations, dates, names, a chronicle of years of surveillance and investigation. "Yesterday," Rachel continued, "Nathan filed for an emergency hearing to contest the will. He's claiming you're mentally unstable, that the stress of your grandmother's death has made you paranoid and delusional. He's trying to have you declared incompetent. Ashley swore under her breath. Can he do that? He can try, Rachel replied. But that's not what worries me. The judge he's requesting, Judge William Montgomery, he's Morrison's brother-in-law. A chill ran down my spine. They were trying to take everything, not just the ranch, but my freedom, my sanity, my life. When's the hearing? Marcus asked, already typing on his laptop. Tomorrow morning. They're pushing it through unusually fast. Rachel's voice was apologetic. I tried to delay it, but Montgomery insisted on urgency, citing concern for Rebecca's well-being. Perfect, I said, surprising everyone. Let them have their hearing. Rebecca, Ashley started, but I cut her off. No, listen. They think they've got us backed into a corner. They think we're scrambling, desperate. But we've got something they don't know about. Everything. The evidence, the real will, all of it. Let them walk into that courtroom thinking they've won. Let them bring all their powerful friends and corrupt officials. And then we spring the trap, Marcus finished, a slow smile spreading across his weathered face. Just like Rose planned. We spent the next several hours preparing. Rachel worked on the legal strategy, while Marcus made calls to trusted contacts in law enforcement and the media. Ashley left to gather supplies. We couldn't risk me going back to my house or being seen in public. As evening approached, Rachel received a text that made her pale. Nathan's filed a restraining order. He's claiming you broke into his house and stole confidential business documents. There's a warrant out for your arrest. They're trying to force you out of hiding, Marcus observed. Make you run, make you look guilty. I thought about running, about disappearing into the desert my grandmother had loved so much. But that's what they wanted. For me to vanish. To become another mysterious accident. Another problem that went away quietly. I'm not running, I said firmly. Not this time. We worked through the night, preparing for every possibility. Marcus called in favors from former colleagues in law enforcement. Rachel prepared a devastating legal counterattack. Ashley coordinated with local journalists she knew from her work at the hospital. Around midnight, my satellite phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. My blood ran cold as I read it. Last chance, Becca. Sign over the ranch, admit to having a mental break, and this all goes away. Fight us, and what happened in the desert will seem like a picnic. N. I showed the message to Marcus, who immediately began tracing it. But I already knew what I was going to do. I texted back a single word, no. The response came quickly. Then I hope you're ready for war. I thought about my grandmother, about her years of quiet resistance, gathering evidence, while playing the role of a simple ranch owner. I thought about my grandfather, who died protecting something bigger than himself, and I thought about the desert, which had both threatened my life and helped me find my strength. I was born ready, I whispered to myself. As dawn approached, we finalized our plan. Rachel would begin the hearing normally, letting Nathan and his allies present their case. Let them think they had the upper hand. Then, when the moment was right, we would reveal everything, not just to the court, but to the world. One thing still bothers me, Ashley said as we prepared to leave Marcus's office. Why now? Why did Nathan choose this moment to make his move? Marcus looked up from his computer. Because of this. He turned the screen toward us, showing a news article dated just 2 weeks ago. The EPA is planning to designate several areas in Arizona as protected watersheds. Once that happens, no one can touch the aquifer under Rose's ranch. They were running out of time. I remembered Nathan's increasing agitation over the past few weeks, his late-night phone calls, the tension in his shoulders. He'd been feeling the pressure, knowing his window of opportunity was closing. There's something else you should know, Rachel said quietly. Your grandmother. She sent copies of everything to a federal task force investigating water rights corruption in the Southwest. They've been building a case for years. She was supposed to testify next month. The pieces clicked into place. My grandmother's death, Nathan's desperate move to get control of the ranch, the rushed hearing. It was all connected. They weren't just trying to grab valuable land, they were trying to bury evidence of years of corruption before it could come to light. As the sun began to rise over Tucson, casting long shadows across the city, I felt a strange calm settle over me. In a few hours, I would walk into that courtroom and face the man who had pretended to love me while plotting my destruction. I would face the people who had killed my grandparents and tried to steal their legacy. But I wouldn't be walking in alone. I had Marcus's strength, Rachel's legal expertise, Ashley's fierce loyalty, and most importantly, my grandmother's carefully laid plans. They thought they were going to war with one woman. They were about to learn they were fighting an army of ghosts. All the people they had wronged, all the lives they had destroyed, all crying out at once for justice. I touched the satellite phone in my pocket, thinking of Nathan's threat. He was right about one thing. This was war. But he'd made a crucial mistake in his first battle, out there in the desert. He'd left me alive, thinking the desert would finish what he'd started. Instead, it had forged me into a weapon, just as it had forged my grandmother before me. The desert, I had learned, didn't break things. It stripped them down to their essence, revealing what was truly strong, truly valuable. Like the rare earth elements hidden beneath my grandmother's ranch, some treasures only revealed themselves under pressure. I was done being afraid, done being a victim. The desert had taught me its final lesson. Sometimes the most dangerous thing in nature isn't the predator, but the prey that refuses to be hunted. Nathan and his friends were about to learn that lesson too. And this time, there would be nowhere for them to hide from the truth. The Tucson courthouse loomed before me, its modern glass and steel architecture gleaming in the early morning sun. Television vans lined the street. Word of the emergency competency hearing had leaked to the press, exactly as we'd planned. Marcus's contacts in the media had made sure the right reporters were present. Ashley squeezed my hand as we climbed the courthouse steps. She'd insisted on doing my makeup herself, covering the exhaustion of sleepless nights with expert precision. "You look strong," she'd said as she worked, like someone they should be afraid of. Rachel met us in the lobby, surrounded by her legal team. Her usual professional calm was tinged with nervous energy. "They're all here," she murmured as she guided us toward the courtroom. Morrison Chen, half the Desert Crown Board of Directors. Even Senator Williams showed up. "Of course he did," Marcus said quietly, appearing beside us like a shadow. The good senator has received quite generous campaign contributions from Morrison's shell companies. The courtroom was packed when we entered. I felt the weight of dozens of eyes as we made our way to our table. Nathan sat at the opposite table, wearing the gray suit I'd bought him for our last anniversary. The sight of it made my stomach turn. He wasn't alone. James Morrison sat beside him, along with 3 other lawyers I didn't recognize. Behind them, the gallery was filled with men in expensive suits, the power brokers of Arizona water rights, all gathered to watch my destruction. Judge Montgomery entered, and the room rose. As we sat back down, I studied him carefully. He looked exactly like the photo in my grandmother's files, distinguished, authoritative, and completely in Morrison's pocket. "We're here today," Montgomery began, "to address some very serious concerns about Rebecca Mitchell's mental state and her ability to manage her inherited property." Nathan's lawyer stood, a tall woman with steel gray hair and predatory eyes. "Your Honor, in the past week alone, Mrs. Mitchell has exhibited increasingly erratic behavior. She's made wild accusations against her loving husband, broken into his home to steal documents, and appears to be suffering from paranoid delusions about conspiracy theories involving her grandmother's death." I watched Nathan as his lawyer spoke. He kept his expression carefully concerned, the worried husband acting only out of love. It was a masterful performance. 5 days ago, I would have believed it myself. Furthermore, the lawyer continued, Mrs. Mitchell has been refusing to take calls from family and friends, hiding in unknown locations, and associating with questionable individuals. She glanced meaningfully at Marcus. Rachel stood next. Your Honor, before we proceed, I'd like to submit some new evidence that has recently come to light. Objection, Nathan's lawyer snapped. Any new evidence should have been submitted during discovery. Given the rushed nature of these proceedings, Rachel countered smoothly, there was no traditional discovery period, and this evidence is directly relevant to Mrs. Mitchell's mental state and the motivation behind this hearing. Judge Montgomery frowned, but nodded. I'll allow it, but this better be relevant, counselor. Rachel signaled to her assistant, who began distributing thick folders to the court. What I'm presenting, Your Honor, is evidence of a systematic conspiracy to defraud Mrs. Mitchell of her inheritance through coercion, intimidation, and possibly murder. The room erupted in whispers. I saw Morrison lean forward, his face darkening. Nathan's mask of concern slipped for just a moment, revealing the rage beneath. These are outrageous accusations, Nathan's lawyer sputtered, but Rachel was all ready. Moving to the presentation screen at the front of the courtroom. Let's begin with Exhibit A, she said, bringing up the first document. These are emails between Nathan Mitchell and James Morrison, dating back to 3 years before he ever met my client. They discuss in detail their plan to gain control of the Mitchell Ranch through marriage. Nathan's face had gone pale. Morrison was already on his feet, whispering urgently to his own lawyer. Objection, Your Honor. Nathan's lawyer practically shouted. These emails, if they even exist, were obtained illegally. On the contrary, Rachel replied calmly. They were collected legally by Rose Mitchell during her own investigation into Desert Crown Development's activities, an investigation she was conducting in cooperation with the FBI's Public Corruption Unit. The gallery erupted again, louder, this time. I saw several of the suited men getting up, heading for the exits. They knew what was coming. Order! Judge Montgomery banged his gavel, but Rachel wasn't finished. I'd like to call our first witness, she announced. Special Agent David Chen of the FBI's Public Corruption Task Force. The man who stood up wasn't Thomas Chen's associate from the desert. This Chen wore a federal badge and carried himself with the quiet authority of law enforcement. As he made his way to the witness stand, I saw Morrison grab his phone, fingers flying over the keys. Too late, Marcus whispered beside me. All their accounts are already frozen. The next hour was a masterclass in controlled demolition. Agent Chen laid out years of evidence, bribes, threats, environmental violations, and murder. He detailed how Rose Mitchell had been their key confidential informant, working with the FBI to document everything. And Mrs. Mitchell's death? Rachel asked. We have evidence her heart medication was tampered with, Agent Chen replied. The same drug that was found in her system had been ordered by a subsidiary of Desert Crown Development 3 weeks before her death. Nathan was openly sweating now. Morrison had disappeared during a brief recess, only to be arrested in the parking lot trying to flee. Senator Williams had suffered a convenient medical emergency and been escorted out by paramedics. Your Honor, Rachel said, in light of this evidence, we move to dismiss all charges questioning Mrs. Mitchell's competency. Furthermore, we're countersuing for attempted murder, conspiracy, fraud. The list went on, but I was watching Nathan. Our eyes met across the courtroom, and for the first time, I saw real fear in his. He knew it was over. Everything he'd planned, everything he'd worked for, was crumbling around him. Judge Montgomery tried to maintain order, but it was useless. Federal agents were already moving through the gallery, serving warrants and making arrests. The carefully orchestrated takedown my grandmother had planned was playing out perfectly. In the chaos, Nathan tried to slip away. He made it as far as the courthouse steps before Marcus caught up with him. I followed, wanting to see this final moment. Running. "Again, Nathan?" I called out. He turned, and I saw something crack in his expression. "You don't understand," he said, his voice desperate. "They'll kill me for this. Morrison, his people, they don't forgive failure. You should have thought of that before you left me, to die in the desert." Federal agents surrounded him, reading his rights as they led him away. The last glimpse I had of my husband was him looking back at me, his face a mixture of fear and something else. Respect, maybe. Or recognition that he'd underestimated me completely. Back inside, Rachel was conferring with Agent Chen while reporters swarmed around us. Ashley kept them at bay while Marcus guided me to a quiet corner. "Your grandmother would be proud," he said softly. I touched the satellite phone in my pocket, thinking of all the pieces that had led to this moment. She planned it all, didn't she? Even my marriage to Nathan. She must have known who he was, what he was trying to do. Marcus nodded slowly. Rose was playing a long game. She needed to draw them out, make them reveal themselves. But she also needed to make sure you were protected. Protected? They tried to kill me. No, Marcus corrected gently. They tried to scare you. If they'd wanted you dead, they wouldn't have left you walking away from that car. Rose knew you had strength. In you, strength like hers. She knew when the time came, you'd find it. I thought about that, about all the summers my grandmother had spent teaching me about the desert, about survival, about trust and betrayal. She'd been preparing me all along. The aftermath was a blur of interviews, depositions, and paperwork. The FBI's investigation expanded, uncovering corruption that reached into the highest levels of Arizona politics. Nathan, facing multiple federal charges, started talking immediately, hoping to cut a deal. Morrison wasn't so lucky. He was found in his cell the next morning, having apparently decided to take his own way out rather than face what was coming. I couldn't find it in myself to feel sorry for him. A week later, I stood on the ranch house porch, watching the sunset paint the desert in familiar shades of gold and purple. The property felt different now, not just my inheritance, but my responsibility. My grandmother had died protecting not just the land, but the water beneath it, the future it represented. Ashley joined me, carrying 2 glasses of wine. "So," she said, handing me one, "what's next?" I sipped my wine, considering. The FBI had suggested witness protection, a new identity somewhere far from Arizona. But that would mean letting go of everything my grandmother had fought to protect. "I'm staying," I said finally. "This land, this fight, it's mine now. There will be others like Morrison, other corporations trying to steal the water rights. Someone has to stand guard." Ashley smiled, clinking her glass against mine. "Well then, I guess I better help you fix up that guest house because I'm not leaving you alone out here." Later that night, I sat in my grandmother's study, reading through more of her journals. There was so much still to learn, so many layers to uncover. But I had time now, and something else. Purpose. The desert wind whispered outside, carrying the scent of sage and creosote. Somewhere in the darkness, coyotes called to each other, ancient songs of survival and resilience. I understood those songs better now. My phone buzzed, a message from Marcus. More evidence had been found, more connections uncovered. This wasn't over, not by a long shot, but I was ready. The desert had taught me its lessons well: patience, endurance, and the quiet strength that comes from having roots sunk deep into unforgiving soil. Nathan had abandoned me in the desert, thinking it would destroy me. Instead, it had revealed me, stripped away everything false until only truth remained. Like the rare earth elements hidden beneath the ranch, I had emerged from pressure transformed into something stronger, more valuable. The war for water rights in the Southwest was just beginning. But they would learn what my grandmother had known all along, that some things are worth fighting for, worth dying for, and that sometimes the most dangerous force in nature is a woman who has nothing left to lose and everything to protect. The prison visiting room was colder than I expected, its institutional gray walls doing nothing to soften the harsh fluorescent lighting. I sat at the metal table, watching Nathan through the thick glass barrier between us. 3 months in federal custody had changed him. The polished exterior was gone, replaced by a haunted look that made him appear years older. "Thank you for coming," he said, his voice tinny through the phone receiver. "I wasn't sure you would." "I almost didn't," I replied honestly. "Marcus thought it might be a trap." A ghost of his old smile flickered across Nathan's face. "Marcus Rodriguez. I should have known Rose would have him watching over you. We never saw him coming." "You never saw a lot of things coming." The smile faded. Nathan leaned forward, his voice dropping. "They're not done, Rebecca. Morrison might be dead, but the others, they're still out there, still watching. The senator, Chen's group, the Water Rights Consortium, they're regrouping." I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the room's temperature. "Is that why you wanted to see me? To warn me?" "Partly." He glanced around, though we were alone in the visiting area. "They approached me last week, through my lawyer, made me an offer. If I sign an affidavit claiming Rose's evidence was fabricated, saying you and Marcus coerced me into making false statements. They'll what? Get you out early? Protect you in here?" The bitterness in my voice surprised even me. "They'll make sure I live to see my sentencing date." The fear in his eyes was real now. Morrison didn't kill himself, Rebecca. We both know that. I did know. The autopsy had revealed traces of the same compound found in my grandmother's heart medication. A message to anyone else thinking of talking. "What did you tell them?" "I said I'd think about it. Buy some time." He pressed his palm against the glass between us. "I know you have no reason to believe me, no reason to trust anything I say, but Rose, she knew things. Things even the FBI doesn't know about. About what's really under that ranch, about why they want it so badly." My grandmother's journal entries flashed through my mind, her cryptic references to something deeper than water rights, something she'd only trust to tell me in person. But she died before she could. "The aquifer," I started, but Nathan was already shaking his head. "It's not just water. The rare earth elements, they're part of it. But there's more. Something in the cave systems under the ranch. Something they've been looking for since the 1940s. A guard approached, signaling our time was almost up. Nathan spoke faster, more urgently. "Check the old mining records from World War II. Look for Project Horizon and Rebecca." He hesitated. "Be careful who you trust. Even in the FBI, not everyone is who they seem." The guard was beside us now. Nathan stood, but his eyes stayed locked on mine. "I did love you," he said softly. "Maybe not at first, not when it started, but I did. That's why I couldn't go through with it that day in the desert. Why I made sure you had a chance." The guard led him away before he could finish. I sat there for a long moment, my mind racing. When I finally emerged into the bright Arizona sunlight, Marcus was waiting by his truck. "Well?" he asked as I climbed in. I told him everything. Nathan's warning, the threat to his life, Project Horizon. Marcus listened without interrupting, his weathered face giving nothing away. "Rose mentioned Project Horizon once," he said finally, pulling onto the highway. "Years ago. She was drunk, which almost never happened. Said something about lights in the caves, about why the government had really built that base out in the desert." "What base?" "It's gone now, decommissioned in the 70s. But during the war, there was a secret facility just north of the ranch. Officially, it was for weather balloons. And unofficially? Marcus shrugged. The usual rumors, UFOs, secret weapons, government experiments. But Rose, she thought they were looking for something specific, something they'd detected but couldn't reach. My phone buzzed, a text from Ashley. 911, come to the ranch now. Marcus pressed down on the accelerator without being asked. We made the drive in record time, dust billowing behind us as we took the back roads to avoid being followed. The ranch looked normal as we approached, but something felt off. Ashley's car was in the driveway, along with a vehicle I didn't recognize, a black SUV with government plates. We found them in the study. Ashley, Agent Chen, and a woman I'd never seen before. She wore civilian clothes, but her bearing screamed military. "Mrs. Mitchell," she said as we entered. "I'm Dr. Sarah Blackwood, Department of Energy. We need to talk about what's under your ranch." For the next hour, Dr. Blackwood laid out a story that seemed impossible. The caves under the ranch weren't just natural formations. They were part of a vast underground complex, far older than any known human settlement in the region. In 1943, she explained, spreading maps across my grandmother's desk, a geological survey detected unusual energy, readings coming from deep beneath this area. Project Horizon was established to investigate, but they could never reach the source. The cave systems were too complex, too unstable. "What kind of energy readings?" Marcus asked. Dr. Blackwood hesitated. "The kind that defy our current understanding of physics. The kind that certain parties would do anything to control. Like Morrison's group? Among others." She straightened, fixing me with an intense stare. "Mrs. Mitchell, we've been monitoring this situation for decades. Your grandmother was one of our few allies in the region. She understood what was at stake." My head was spinning. "So this isn't about water rights? Or rare earth elements?" "Those are valuable, yes, but they're just a cover for the real objective. The Chinese consortium, the Senators Group, they all want what's down there, what we think is down there." "Which is what, exactly?" Before she could answer, Ashley burst in. She'd been keeping watch outside. "We've got company, multiple vehicles approaching from the North Road." Dr. Blackwood was immediately in motion. "They're here. We need to move now." "Who's here?" I demanded. "The people who really had your grandmother killed. The ones Morrison worked for." She was pulling equipment from her SUV, what looked like weapons, but like none I'd ever seen. "They must have intercepted my travel plans. I led them right to you. I'm sorry." Marcus had his phone out. "I'm calling in backup." "There's no time," Dr. Blackwood said, "and your FBI friends can't help with this. Not with what's coming." She handed me what looked like a small metal disc. "Your grandmother gave me this years ago. Said when the time came, you'd know what to do with it." I recognized it from my childhood. The strange medallion Grandma Rose always wore but never explained. I'd assumed it was just jewelry. "The cave entrance in the old creek bed," Dr. Blackwood continued. "We need to get there before they do. Whatever happens, they cannot be allowed to reach the lower chambers." The sound of vehicles growing closer spurred us into action. As we piled into Marcus's truck, I clutched the medallion, feeling its subtle warmth against my palm. After everything, Nathan's betrayal, the court battle, the federal investigation, this felt like walking into a dream or a nightmare. But my grandmother's voice echoed in my memory. "The truth is in the water." She'd known all along what lay beneath her land, known and died protecting it. As Marcus drove us toward the old creek bed, taking the hidden paths only locals knew, I made a decision. Whatever we found in those caves, whatever secrets lay hidden in the desert depths, I would finish what my grandmother started. The desert had already stripped away everything I thought I knew about my life. Now it was time to discover what else it had been hiding all these years. The night wind whipped across the desert as Marcus's truck bounced along the hidden access road. Behind us, the distant gleam of headlights marked our pursuers' progress. Dr. Blackwood sat beside me in the back seat, her strange equipment casting an eerie blue glow across her face. "We're being herded," Marcus said suddenly, his hands tight on the steering wheel. "There's another group coming in from the east. They're trying to force us toward the main cave entrance." "No," Dr. Blackwood replied, checking something on a device that looked like a heavily modified tablet. "Let them think that's our plan. Your grandmother showed me another way in." Ashley, riding shotgun, turned to look at us. "Through the old well house?" "Rose sealed that entrance years ago." "Not sealed," I said, the memory suddenly surfacing. "Hidden. She used to tell me stories about secret passages, about how the original ranchers built escape routes during the Apache Wars." I held up the medallion. "This isn't just jewelry, is it?" Dr. Blackwood shook her head. "It's a key, one of 3 that were made during Project Horizon. The other 2 were lost, or so we thought, until one showed up in China last month." The truck lurched as Marcus took a sharp turn onto what looked like solid rock, but was actually an ancient wagon trail. The pursuing vehicle's headlights disappeared behind the ridge. "That'll buy us a few minutes," he said, "but they'll figure it out soon enough." The well house appeared ahead, a small adobe structure that had been old when my grandmother inherited the ranch. Its wooden door hung crooked on rusted hinges, looking exactly like what it was supposed to be, an abandoned relic of frontier days. We piled out of the truck, Dr. Blackwood immediately setting up what looked like motion sensors around the perimeter. Ashley helped me with the door while Marcus kept watch. Inside, generations of dust-covered empty shelves and broken pottery. The well itself was a dark hole in the center of the packed earth floor, its hand-cranked winch long since seized up with rust. "The medallion," Dr. Blackwood said urgently. "There should be a marking on the north wall, about chest height." I found it almost immediately, a small carving that could have been mistaken for natural wear in the adobe. The medallion fit perfectly into the depression. When I turned it, something clicked deep within the wall. A section of the floor near the well shifted, revealing stone steps descending into darkness. Cool air rushed up from below, carrying the scent of age and secrets. "They're coming!" Marcus called from outside. Multiple vehicles, heavily armed. Dr. Blackwood was already moving down the steps, her modified weapons at ready. "Get inside, all of you, now!" We descended into the darkness, the sound of approaching vehicles growing fainter. Dr. Blackwood activated something that made the stairway entrance slide shut above us, leaving us in pitch blackness until she switched on powerful LED lights. The tunnel ahead was nothing like the rough caves we'd explored before. This was deliberately constructed, its walls smooth and lined with what looked like copper veins that gave off a faint, pulsing luminescence. "What is this place?" Ashley whispered, her voice filled with awe. "Part of what we've been protecting," Dr. Blackwood replied. "These tunnels predate any known civilization in the region. The copper veins, they're not copper. We still don't know exactly what they're made of." A distant boom shook dust from the ceiling. They were trying to blast their way in. "That won't work," Dr. Blackwood said with grim satisfaction. "These walls have resisted far worse. Come on, we need to reach the chamber before they find another way in." As we moved deeper into the complex, the tunnel began to slope downward. The air grew cooler, and the strange luminescence in the walls stronger. I felt the medallion growing warm against my palm, almost seeming to pulse in sync with the lights. "Your grandmother was our last active guardian," Dr. Blackwood explained as we walked. "Part of a line stretching back to the first ranchers who discovered this place. They knew they had to protect it, even if they didn't fully understand what it was." "And what exactly is it?" Marcus asked. "We're still not entirely sure, but whatever it is, it's changing, becoming more active. That's why they're making their move now. Another explosion rumbled above, closer this time. They were trying different entry points. Here, Dr. Blackwood said suddenly, stopping at what appeared to be a dead end. This is where we make our stand. She pressed her hand against the wall, and sections of it began to move, rearranging themselves like a giant puzzle box. The medallion in my hand was almost too hot to hold now. The chamber that appeared behind the moving walls took my breath away. It was vast, its ceiling lost in darkness above. But it was what lay at its center that made us all stop in our tracks. A column of light rose from the floor to the ceiling, not bright but somehow dense, as if light itself had been turned into liquid. Within it, shapes moved and shifted, geometric, patterns that seemed to fold through dimensions that shouldn't exist. The heart, Dr. Blackwood breathed. It's more active than I've ever seen it. What is it? I asked, unable to look away from the hypnotic patterns. A door, maybe. Or a window. Or something our physics doesn't have words for yet. But it's waking up, trying to tell us something. She turned to me, her face grave. That's why they want it so badly. Imagine being able to harness this kind of power, to control whatever this is. The medallion suddenly grew scorching hot. I dropped it with a cry of pain, but instead of falling, it hung in the air, spinning slowly. The patterns in the light column seemed to respond, shifting faster, more urgently. Rose said this would happen, Dr. Blackwood said softly. She said when the time was right, the heart would choose its new guardian. Before I could process what that meant, alarms began blaring from her equipment. They're in the tunnel system. Multiple breaches. They must have found the other entrances. Marcus checked his weapons. How long do we have? Minutes, maybe less. She turned to me. Rebecca, listen carefully. What happens in the next few minutes will determine everything. Your grandmother knew this day would come. That's why she chose you, prepared you. Prepared me? She never told me any of this. She taught you about the desert, about survival, about trusting your instincts, and most importantly, she taught you about sacrifice, about protecting what matters, no matter the cost. The sound of gunfire echoed through the tunnels. Ashley grabbed my arm. They're getting closer. Dr. Blackwood thrust a small device into my hands. It looked ancient and modern at the same time, covered in the same strange patterns that swirled in the light column. If they reach this chamber, if we can't hold them back, you'll know what to do with this. The heart will show you. More gunfire. Closer now. Marcus and Dr. Blackwood took up defensive positions, while Ashley worked with what looked like electronic countermeasures. I stood before the light column, feeling its energy wash over me in waves. The medallion was still floating, spinning faster now. The patterns in the light column had aligned themselves into what looked like a doorway, and through it, I thought I could see something. Something impossible. They're here! Marcus shouted as the first attackers appeared in the tunnel entrance. The chamber erupted in chaos. Gunfire, shouts, the weird whine of Dr. Blackwood's advanced weapons. I looked down at the device in my hands, then up at the doorway of light. And suddenly, just as Dr. Blackwood had said, I knew exactly what I had to do, what my grandmother had been preparing me for all along. The desert had taught me its final lesson. Sometimes the only way to protect something is to become part of it yourself. Time seemed to slow as I raised the ancient device toward the column of light. The firefight raged around me, but it felt distant, as if happening in another world. The patterns within the light shifted, responding to my movement, creating shapes that spoke to something deep in my consciousness. Don't let her activate it, a voice shouted, one I recognized. Thomas Chen emerged from the tunnel, flanked by heavily armed men in black tactical gear. Take her down, but we need her alive. Marcus and Dr. Blackwood provided covering fire while Ashley worked frantically at her equipment. "Whatever you're going to do, Rebecca, do it fast," she shouted over the chaos. "My countermeasures won't hold them back much longer." The floating medallion suddenly shot toward the light column, disappearing into its shifting depths. The entire chamber hummed with energy, making my teeth vibrate. The device in my hands grew warm, symbols appearing on its surface that matched the patterns in the light. "Mrs. Mitchell." Another familiar voice cut through the noise. Senator Williams stepped into view, his expensive suit incongruous in the ancient chamber. "Think about what you're doing. We can work something out. Name your price." I almost laughed. Even now, facing something beyond their comprehension, they thought everything could be bought and sold. They understood nothing about what my grandmother had protected, about what I now knew I had to do. The device activated in my hands, its symbols glowing with the same dense light as the column. Knowledge flooded my mind, not in words, but in pure understanding. I saw what the heart truly was, what it had been waiting for all these centuries. "It was never about the land," I said, my voice carrying clearly despite the chaos, "or the water, or even what's hidden in these caves. It was about finding the right person, the right guardian." "Don't listen to her," Chen shouted. "Take the shot." Multiple weapons trained on me, but suddenly the light column pulsed, expanding outward in a protective sphere. I saw bullets freeze in midair, then disintegrate into dust. "My grandmother knew," I continued, understanding flooding through me with each word. "She knew what lay beneath her land, knew it had chosen her just as it had chosen others before her, and she knew it would choose me." Dr. Blackwood was smiling now, lowering her weapon. "Just like Rose said it would happen," she whispered. The device in my hands had become transparent, merging with the light. The patterns in the column were moving faster now, forming images I could almost understand, glimpses of other worlds, other possibilities, other dimensions that intersected with our own at this exact point. "This is your last chance," Senator Williams called out, his composure cracking. "Think about what we're offering: power, wealth, influence, anything you want." "I have everything I need," I replied calmly. "I have the truth. I have purpose. And I have this." I pressed my hand into the column of light. It felt like touching summer sunshine and winter frost at the same time. Energy coursed through me, and suddenly I could see everything. The whole complex of caves and tunnels spreading out beneath the desert like a vast web. I could feel every person within them, their intentions clear as daylight. "Get her out of that light!" Chen screamed, but it was too late. The chamber filled with impossible colors as reality itself seemed to flex and bend. I saw Ashley gasp. In wonder, Marcus lower his weapon in awe. Dr. Blackwood was nodding in satisfaction, as if watching a plan come together perfectly. "Your grandmother wasn't just protecting this place," she said. "She was preparing it. Preparing you. The heart has been waiting for the right moment, the right guardian. Someone who understands sacrifice, who has been tested by betrayal and emerged stronger." I understood now why Nathan had been allowed to get so close, why my grandmother hadn't warned me about him. Some lessons could only be learned through experience. Some strength could only be forged through pain. The light was inside me now, or I was inside it. The distinction hardly mattered anymore. I could feel its power, ancient and patient, waiting for countless centuries for this exact moment. "This ends now," I said, my voice resonating with harmonics that made the air itself vibrate. "You will leave this place. You will forget what you've seen here, and you will never return." "You can't do this!" Chen raised his weapon, but suddenly he and his men were floating, suspended in the strange light that now filled the chamber. Senator Williams tried to run, but the light caught him too. I felt no anger toward them now, no desire for revenge. They seemed small and insignificant compared to what I could see, what I could feel. The heart was showing me truths beyond their comprehension, beyond anyone's comprehension who hadn't been chosen to guard them. "Rebecca," Ashley called out, her voice filled with concern. "Are you still... you?" I turned to look at her, seeing not just her physical form, but the patterns of energy that made up her being, the threads of loyalty and love that connected us. "I'm more me than I've ever been," I replied. "I understand everything now." The light began to pulse in regular waves, each one carrying my unwanted visitors further back toward the tunnel entrance. They struggled uselessly against its power. "This isn't over," Senator Williams threatened, but his words sounded hollow, meaningless. "Yes," I said softly. "It is." One final pulse of light, and they were gone, pushed back through the tunnels to the surface. I could feel them emerging into the desert night, their minds already beginning to blur and forget what they'd seen. The chamber grew quiet except for the soft hum of the heart. Dr. Blackwood approached carefully, her face filled with respect and something like awe. "The transformation is complete," she said. "Just as Rose predicted. The heart has its new guardian." I looked down at my hands, seeing them overlaid with patterns of light that matched the column's rhythms. The power thrummed through me, not overwhelming but natural, as if it had always been there waiting to be awakened. "What happens now?" Marcus asked, holstering his weapon. "Now," I said, understanding flowing through me. "We protect it. Not just the heart, but everything it represents. The knowledge, the possibilities, the doorways to other realities that intersect with ours at this exact point in the desert." Ashley stepped forward, taking my hand. Though my skin glowed with strange light, her touch felt normal, grounding. "You're not doing this alone," she said firmly. "No one is meant to guard alone," Dr. Blackwood agreed. "That's why Rose built her network, why she chose her allies carefully. The heart needs its guardian, but the guardian needs their own guardians too." I could feel the truth of her words. The heart was showing me visions of the future, challenges, and threats still to come, others who would try to control its power. But it also showed me strength in connection, in trusted allies, in the bonds that had been forged through adversity. The desert had led me here, each step of my journey necessary. For this moment, Nathan's betrayal, the night abandoned on the highway, the fight for my inheritance, all of it had shaped me into someone capable of accepting this responsibility. "There's so much to learn," I said, watching the patterns shift and dance in the light column. "So much to understand." "And time to understand it," Dr. Blackwood replied. "The heart chose you. It will teach you what you need to know, just as it taught your grandmother." I thought of Rose then, wondering if she had stood in the same spot, feeling the same power flow through her. Had she known then what it would cost her? Had she accepted it anyway? The answer came not in words, but in feeling, a sense of her presence, her approval, her love. She had known everything, had prepared everything, had trusted that when the moment came, I would be ready. The desert night stretched out above us, its stars visible even through layers of rock, their light connecting to the patterns in the heart in ways I was only beginning to understand. I could feel the land above us, every grain of sand, every hidden spring of water, every secret waiting to be discovered. Nathan had abandoned me in the desert, thinking it would break me. Instead, it had led me here, to my true inheritance, to a legacy far greater than land or water rights. The desert hadn't just taught me how to survive, it had taught me how to become something more. The heart pulsed with agreement, its light settling into a steady rhythm that matched my own heartbeat. I was no longer just Rebecca Mitchell, betrayed wife and disinherited granddaughter. I was the guardian, chosen by forces older than civilization itself. entrusted with secrets that could reshape our understanding of reality. And I was ready. The desert wind sang outside, carrying the scent of sage and ancient secrets. Within the chamber, the heart's light danced and shifted, showing glimpses of other worlds, other possibilities, other truths waiting to be understood. My journey hadn't ended here. It was only beginning. But this time, I wasn't walking into the unknown alone. I had my allies, my strength, and most importantly, I had purpose. The desert had stripped everything away until only truth remained. And the truth, I now knew, was more extraordinary than anything I could have imagined. Morning sunlight filtered through the ranch house windows, casting prismatic patterns across the kitchen walls. 2 weeks had passed since the night in the Yas chamber, and I was still adjusting to my new perception of reality. The world looked different now. Layers of energy and light overlaid everything I saw, revealing connections and possibilities I'd never imagined existed. Ashley set a cup of coffee in front of me, the steam rising in spirals that seemed to dance with deeper meaning. "You're doing it again," she said softly. "That faraway look." "Sorry." I blinked, trying to focus on just the physical realm. It's still difficult sometimes, separating what everyone else sees from what the heart shows me. Dr. Blackwood. Sarah, as she'd asked me to call her, entered the kitchen, already dressed for another day of what she called my training. She'd moved into one of the guest rooms, turning it into a makeshift command center filled with both cutting-edge technology and artifacts so ancient they defied dating. "The integration process is proceeding faster than expected," she said, studying the subtle glow that still emanated from my skin. "Your grandmother took months to develop this level of connection with the heart." A knock at the door made us all tense. Even with Chen and his men's memories altered, we remained cautious. Marcus entered using his key, carrying a thick folder, and wearing an expression that meant news. "Nathan's dead," he said without preamble, setting the folder on the table. "Found in his cell this morning, same method as Morrison." I felt the information ripple through the heart's energy field, confirming what I'd already sensed. "They're tying up loose ends," I said, "but they didn't get what they wanted from him first." Marcus nodded. "He left a message. The guards found it hidden in his mattress." He slid a piece of paper across the table. The note was brief, written in Nathan's familiar hand. "Rebecca, everything I told you about Project Horizon was true, but it goes deeper. Look for Dr. Elizabeth Chen, 1962. She found something, they buried it. I'm sorry for everything." "Nah. Chen," Ashley said. "Any relation to Thomas Chen?" "His mother," Sarah replied, her face grave. "She disappeared during Project Horizon. The official story was she'd defected to China, but she found something in the caves," I finished, the heart's knowledge flowing through me. Something they didn't want found. I closed my eyes, letting the heart's energy guide my thoughts. Images flashed through my mind. A woman in a lab coat, making notes as she studied the light column. Her discovery, her fear, her attempt to warn others. "There's a hidden archive," I said, opening my eyes. "Not in the main chamber, but deeper." Dr. Chen sealed it away before they could stop her. Sarah was already gathering equipment. "We need to find it before they realize Nathan passed on this information. They'll be watching for any unusual activity around the ranch." "Too late," Marcus said, looking out the window. A dust cloud on the horizon marked approaching vehicles. "We've got company." Through my enhanced senses, I could feel them coming. Government vehicles, but not any official agency. Something darker, older, operating in shadows. "The old guard," Sarah whispered. I wondered when they'd show themselves. "Who are they?" Ashley asked, but I already knew. The heart was showing me. A secret organization that had existed since Project Horizon, dedicated to controlling and exploiting what lay beneath the desert. They're the ones who really run things, I said. The ones behind Morrison, behind Chen, behind all of it. And they've been waiting for this moment for a long time. Sarah was quickly packing specialized equipment into a bag. We need to reach the archive before they do. Whatever Dr. Chen found, they've been searching for it for 60 years. The regular entrances will be watched, Marcus warned. I smiled, feeling the heart's energy pulse through me. Who said anything about using the regular entrances? My connection to the heart had revealed the truth about the ranch. The entire property was honeycombed with passages and chambers, most of them unknown even to Project Horizon. The ancient builders had created a vast network, and now I could feel every tunnel, every hidden doorway. There's an entrance in the old barn, I said, the knowledge flowing naturally. Behind the north wall, it leads directly to the lower levels. We moved quickly, gathering what we needed. Ashley insisted on coming despite the danger. Her medical skills might be needed, and after everything we'd been through together, she refused to stay behind. The barn looked abandoned, its weathered walls giving no hint of the secrets they concealed. I placed my hand on the rough wood, feeling the energy patterns shift and align. A section of the wall simply ceased to exist, revealing a perfectly preserved stairway descending into darkness. They're at the front gate, Marcus reported, watching through binoculars. 4 vehicles, heavily armed. Professional military types. How long do we have? Sarah asked, checking her specialized weapons. Minutes, maybe less. I felt a surge of energy from the heart, a warning and an invitation combined. We need to hurry. The archive. It's calling to me. The stairs led us deeper than I'd ever been before, past the main chamber into areas that felt ancient beyond reckoning. The walls here weren't just lined with the luminescent veins. They were covered in symbols that seemed to shift and change as we passed. These passages, Sarah breathed, running her hand along one wall. They're not on any of our maps, not even in Rose's records. They're older, I said, understanding flowing through me. Much older. The Project Horizon team never found these levels, but Dr. Chen did. The air grew colder as we descended, charged with an energy that made our hair stand on end. The heart's presence felt stronger here, more focused, as if we were approaching something crucial to its purpose. A distant explosion echoed from above. They were blasting their way in through the known entrances, but they were already too late. We emerged into a chamber unlike anything I'd seen before. The walls were covered in what looked like liquid metal, flowing in complex patterns that hurt the eyes to watch. And at the center, "My God," Sarah whispered. A second light column stood before us, smaller than the one above, but somehow more concentrated, more purposeful. And suspended within it was a device that defied description. Geometric shapes folding through impossible dimensions, creating patterns that spoke of knowledge beyond human comprehension. "Dr. Chen's discovery," I said softly. "This is what they've been looking for all these years." The heart's energy surged through me, connecting with the strange device. Information flooded my mind, not just knowledge, but understanding. I saw what Dr. Chen had seen, understood why she had hidden it away, why she had given her life to keep it from those who would misuse it. "It's a key," I said, the words coming from somewhere beyond my own consciousness. Not just to other places, but to other times, other realities, the heart. It's not just a doorway, it's a nexus point, connecting everything, everywhere. The sounds of fighting echoed from above, Marcus's FBI contacts engaging with the old guard's forces. But it felt distant, unimportant compared to what we'd found. Dr. Chen knew they weren't ready, I continued, the truth unfolding in my mind. Humanity wasn't ready for this kind of power. So she hid it away, left clues that only the right person would understand. Someone chosen by the heart itself. Like your grandmother, Sarah said. Like you. I stepped toward the suspended device, feeling its energy calling to me. This was what everything had been leading to. Every betrayal, every loss, every moment of transformation in the desert night. The heart's power flowed through me, stronger than ever before. I understood now what I had to do, what my grandmother had been preparing me for all along. It wasn't just about protecting the heart's secrets. It was about understanding them, using them wisely, helping humanity grow ready for the knowledge they contained. Above us, the battle for control of the caves continued. But here, in this ancient chamber, a different kind of battle was being won, not with weapons or violence, but with understanding and acceptance of a destiny greater than any of us had imagined. My journey had started with betrayal and abandonment in the desert night. But it had led me here, to a truth more profound than anything I could have imagined. The desert hadn't just taught me how to survive. It had taught me how to become something more, something necessary for the challenges that lay ahead. The heart's energy pulsed through the chamber, through me, through the very fabric of reality itself. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that this was only the beginning. The chamber pulsed with energy as I reached out toward Dr. Chen's device, its impossible geometries reflecting in the liquid metal walls around us. But before my fingers could touch it, a new presence entered my awareness. Sharp, focused, and familiar. "Step away from the device, Mrs. Mitchell." The voice belonged to Agent David Chen of the FBI's Public Corruption Task Force. But the energy signature I sensed from him now was anything but federal law enforcement. "You're not really FBI, are you?" I asked without turning around. Through my connection to the heart, I could see the truth about him. Layers of deception peeling away like old paint. "Smart girl," he said, entering the chamber with several armed men. "Just like your grandmother. Too smart for your own good." Sarah raised her weapon, but Chen's men already had us surrounded. Ashley moved closer to me, while Marcus kept his hands visible but stayed ready to move. "Your old guard," I said, finally turning to face him. "You've been playing both sides all along." Chen smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "For 3 generations, my family has been trying to unlock the secrets your family has selfishly kept hidden. My grandmother found the key. Your grandmother stole it. And now finally we can set things right." The heart's energy surged through me, showing me more, not just about Chen, but about his grandmother, Dr. Elizabeth Chen. The truth was far different from what he believed. "Your grandmother didn't find a key," I said softly. "She found the truth, and it terrified her." "Lies." Chen's composure cracked slightly. "She was brilliant. She understood what this power could do for humanity. But your grandmother and her allies couldn't handle it. They destroyed her work, drove her away." "She wasn't driven away," I interrupted, the heart's knowledge flowing through me. "She chose to leave, to hide, to protect everyone from what she'd discovered." I could feel the device behind me responding to the energy patterns in the chamber, its impossible shapes shifting and realigning. Through my enhanced senses, I saw connections forming between the device, the heart above, and something else. Something vast and ancient that waited just beyond the edges of our reality. "Your grandmother left something else," I continued. "Not just the device, but a message. Would you like to see it?" Chen's finger tightened on his trigger. "No more games. Step aside." Instead, I raised my hand toward the liquid metal walls. The heart's energy flowed through me, and suddenly the flowing patterns resolved into images. A recording left by Dr. Elizabeth Chen 60 years ago. Her face appeared on every surface of the chamber, younger than in the photos I'd seen, but with the same intelligent eyes as her grandson. Her voice echoed with both sound and energy. "If you're seeing this, then the heart has chosen its true guardian, and my worst fears have been confirmed. The power here isn't meant for us. Not yet." We're children playing with forces we can't comprehend. The patterns, the connections, they're beautiful, but they're also dangerous. Some doors aren't meant to be opened until we're ready to handle what's on the other side. Chen's hands shook as he watched his grandmother's confession play out across the chamber walls. No, this isn't. She wouldn't. The Mitchell family, Dr. Chen's recording continued, understood this from the beginning. They aren't guards keeping others out. They're guardians protecting us from our own destructive ambitions. The heart chose them for a reason. And if you're seeing this, it has chosen again. The images shifted, showing diagrams, equations, possibilities that hurt the mind to contemplate. What we found here isn't just a doorway or a weapon. It's a test. A measure of our species' readiness for knowledge that could either elevate us to the stars or destroy us completely. We're not ready. Not yet. But someday. The recording faded, the liquid metal walls returning to their flowing patterns. Chen stood frozen, his weapon lowered, decades of belief crumbling around him. Your grandmother was protecting you, I said gently. Protecting everyone. She and my grandmother worked together to hide the truth until humanity was ready. But the old guard, Sarah interjected, they couldn't accept that. They created their own version of the truth, turned daughter against mother, grandson against grandmother. A tremor ran through the chamber. The battle above was getting closer. But something else was happening too. The device behind me had begun to pulse in rhythm with my heartbeat, with the heart's energy, with patterns that extended far beyond our understanding. It's starting, Sarah breathed, just like Rose predicted. Chen's men looked nervous, their weapons wavering between us and the increasingly active device. Reality itself seemed to be fluctuating, the chamber's dimensions shifting in ways that shouldn't be possible. You have a choice, I told Chen, right now. You can hold on to the lies you've been told, or you can honor your grandmother's wisdom and help us protect what she died defending. For a moment, I thought he would shoot. The old guard's conditioning ran deep. Generations of carefully constructed deception layered into every belief. But blood ran deeper, and in his energy patterns, I saw the moment truth won out. Stand down, he ordered his men. Some hesitated, their own conditioning fighting against the command. But the authority in his voice won out. The chamber's energy surged again, stronger this time. The device was fully active now, its impossible geometries spinning and reconfiguring, in ways that spoke of other dimensions, other possibilities. What's happening? Ashley asked, gripping my arm. The heart is responding to something, Sarah said, checking her instruments. Some kind of alignment we've never seen before. I felt it through my connection, not just energy patterns, but a message, an invitation, a warning. The true purpose of everything my grandmother and Dr. Chen had protected was finally revealing itself. It's time, I said, understanding flowing through me. The test isn't just about humanity's readiness. It's about finding the right balance between progress and wisdom, between knowledge and responsibility. The device spun faster, its patterns synchronizing with the heart above. Through our combined energy, I saw what needed to be done, not just to protect these secrets, but to guide humanity toward a future where we could handle them responsibly. The old guard will come for it again, Chen warned, now standing with us rather than against us. Others too. The power here. People won't stop trying to claim it. Let them try, I replied, feeling the heart's energy merge more fully with my own. That's why the heart chooses its guardians carefully, not just to protect its secrets, but to understand when and how they should be revealed. The chamber filled with light as the device reached its full activation. But instead of opening a door or revealing some ultimate weapon, it created something else. A bridge between understanding and wisdom, between what we were and what we could become. Through my enhanced senses, I saw the pattern of everything: past, present, and possible. Futures laid out like strands of light. The heart hadn't just chosen me as its guardian. It had chosen all of us, in our own ways, to play our parts in a story much larger than our personal ambitions. The truth that Dr. Chen had discovered, that my grandmother had protected, wasn't just about power or knowledge. It was about readiness, about growing into our potential rather than seizing it prematurely. The desert had taught me that some things can't be rushed, that true strength comes from patience and understanding. As the device's energy reached its peak, I felt something else. A presence, vast and ancient, watching through the patterns of light. We were being evaluated, all of us, in this moment. And our choices here would determine far more than just the fate of the secrets beneath my grandmother's ranch. The future stretched out before us, full of challenges and possibilities. But for the first time, I truly understood what it meant to be the heart's guardian. It wasn't just about protecting power from those who would misuse it. It was about guiding humanity toward a future where such protection would no longer be necessary. The desert wind sang through the ancient chambers, carrying the wisdom of ages. And in its song, I heard the truth that both Dr. Chen and my grandmother had understood. Some journeys can't be rushed. Some knowledge must be earned. And the greatest power lies not in what we can take, but in what we choose to protect. Moonlight spilled across the desert as I stood on my grandmother's porch, watching the stars wheel overhead. 6 months had passed since the confrontation in the chamber, since the day everything changed. The ranch looked the same on the surface, but beneath it, new purpose thrummed through ancient stone. Ashley emerged from the house carrying 2 steaming mugs of tea. She'd moved into the guest house permanently, refusing to leave despite my warnings about the responsibility she was taking on. Some friendships, she'd said, were worth any risk. "They're gathering again," she said, handing me a mug. "Sarah's." Sensors picked up multiple vehicles approaching from the north. I nodded, already aware of their presence through my connection to the heart. The remnants of the old guard. They've been regrouping, gathering allies, testing our defenses. The past months had brought many such tests. Though Chen had joined our side, others within the organization refused to accept Dr. Chen's truth. They clung to their twisted vision of power and control, unable to understand that the heart's true purpose was transformation, not domination. Sarah appeared like a shadow from the darkness. 3 teams, heavily armed. They're using some kind of energy-dampening technology. New stuff, military grade. "It won't work," I said, sipping my tea. Through my enhanced senses, I could feel the futility of their efforts. The heart's energy wasn't something that could be dampened or controlled. It flowed like water, finding new paths, adapting, evolving. Marcus's truck pulled up, gravel crunching, under its tires. He and Chen emerged, both carrying equipment I recognized from Project Horizon's old files. "They've got someone new with them," Chen reported, his face grim. A woman. Energy signature unlike anything I've seen before. A ripple passed through the heart's constant flow of information. Images flashed through my mind. A laboratory in China. Experiments with forces beyond human understanding. A desperate attempt to replicate the heart's power. They found another one. I breathed, understanding flowing through me. Another nexus. Oint! But they've corrupted it, forced it to manifest before it was ready. Sarah's instruments began beeping urgently. Energy spike incoming. Whatever they're bringing, it's powerful. The air itself seemed to crackle with potential. I could feel the desert responding, ancient powers stirring beneath the sand. The heart's energy surged through me, showing me possibilities, dangers, opportunities. "Get everyone into the sanctuary," I ordered, my voice carrying harmonics that spoke of other dimensions. This isn't going to be like their other attacks. The sanctuary was a chamber we'd prepared beneath the ranch house, lined with the same liquid metal as the deeper caves. It had taken months of work, guided by the heart's knowledge, but it provided protection against energies that could tear normal matter apart. As my friends hurried to safety, I walked out onto the desert sand. The night wind carried whispers of power, of conflict, of choices yet to be made. Above, the stars seemed to pulse in rhythm with the heart's energy. They emerged from the darkness like shadows given form, black-clad figures surrounding a woman who glowed with unnatural light. Her energy signature was wrong, discordant, like a beautiful song played in a key never meant for human ears. "Rebecca Mitchell," she called out, her voice echoing with artificial power. "I am Dr. Lin. We need not be enemies." Through the heart's vision, I saw the truth of her. They had tried to force a connection to another nexus point, to create their own guardian. But the process had been rushed, corrupted by ambition and fear. The power flowing through her was killing her even as it made her strong. "You're dying," I said softly. "The energy you're channeling, it's not meant to be controlled this way." "I am transcending," she countered, raising her hands. Light that hurt to look at gathered around her fingers. "We don't need to wait for some cosmic judgment of readiness. We can take this power, use it to reshape reality itself." The air between us warped and twisted as her power built. The old. Guard soldiers raised weapons that hummed with strange energies, but they seemed hesitant to move closer. They could feel it too, the wrongness in what they'd created. "Your way leads only to destruction," I told her. "The heart, the nexus points. They're not tools to be used. They're guides to be understood, teachers to help us grow ready for the knowledge they offer." "Pretty words," Dr. Lin sneered. "But words won't stop us from taking what we want." She struck without warning, sending a bolt of corrupted energy toward me. But the heart's power was already moving, had been moving since before she appeared. Reality bent around me, the attack passing harmlessly through space that wasn't quite there. "I don't want to fight you," I said, feeling the desert's ancient power rising to join with the heart's energy. "There's another way. Let me help you." "Help me?" She laughed, the sound distorted by the power eating her alive. "I am beyond help, beyond human limitation. I am becoming what you fear to become." She attacked again, and this time I couldn't fully dodge. Energy like liquid lightning grazed my shoulder, sending pain shooting through my body. But pain was part of the desert's teaching, and I had learned its lessons well. The heart's power flowed through me, not in attack, but in revelation. I opened my awareness fully, letting Dr. Lin see what I saw. The true nature of the power she was trying to control, the price of forcing evolution before its time. She staggered as the vision hit her. No, this isn't. We calculated everything." "Some things can't be calculated," I said gently. "Some truths have to be lived, experienced, understood. The nexus points aren't just sources of power. They're mirrors, showing us who we really are and who we might become." The corrupted energy surrounding her flickered, its artificial rhythms faltering as truth worked its way past years of conditioning and ambition. Around us, the old guard soldiers shifted uneasily, sensing the change in the air. "It's not too late," I offered, extending my hand. "Let go of what they forced upon you. Let the heart show you a better way." For a moment, I thought she would accept. I saw the longing in her eyes, the desire to understand rather than simply control. But the corrupted power had too strong a hold. "No!" she screamed, gathering her remaining energy for one final attack. "I won't be weak." The blast she released should have destroyed everything for miles. But the heart had prepared for this moment, had been preparing since before I was born. The desert itself responded, ancient powers rising to meet modern ambition. As Dr. Lin's attack reached me, I opened myself fully to the heart's energy. Light poured from my body, not in opposition to her power but in harmony with it, transforming corruption into understanding, fear into wisdom. The blast wave expanded outward, but instead of destruction, it brought revelation. Every person present saw the truth about themselves, about the power they sought to control, about the journey humanity still needed to take before it was ready for such knowledge. Dr. Lin fell to her knees, the artificial connection to the corrupted nexus point finally breaking. The old guard soldiers lowered their weapons, many of them weeping as the weight of understanding settled over them. I knelt beside Dr. Lin, taking her hand. "Let me help you now," I said softly. "Let me show you what your research was trying to understand." Through our connected hands, I shared the heart's true power, not domination or control, but growth, understanding, and the patience to wait until the time was right. I felt the corrupted energy begin to fade from her system, replaced by something gentler, truer. The desert wind rose around us, carrying the scent of sage and ancient wisdom. Above, the stars pulsed in harmony with the heart's energy, witnessing another step in humanity's long journey toward readiness. Sarah, Marcus, and the others emerged from the sanctuary, drawn by the change in the air. Ashley moved to help Dr. Lin while Chen began speaking quietly with his former colleagues, helping them understand what they had experienced. Looking out over the desert night, I felt my grandmother's presence in every grain of sand, every whisper of wind. She had known this moment would come, had prepared the way for truth to triumph over ambition. The heart's energy flowed through the land, healing, teaching, guiding. The war for its power wasn't over, might never be over until humanity was truly ready for the knowledge it offered. But tonight, at least, understanding had won over control, wisdom over ambition. The desert had taught me its most important lesson, that true power lies not in what we can take by force, but in what we earn through patience, understanding, and the wisdom to know when we're ready for greater truths. A year had passed since that night when Nathan left me on the desert highway, thinking he would break me. The ranch spread out before me in the morning light, transformed yet unchanged. New buildings had sprouted among the old, research facilities disguised as agricultural outbuildings, training centers hidden behind weathered barn doors. Sarah worked with Dr. Lin in what we now called the Integration Center, helping others who had been touched by Nexus energies learn to handle their gifts safely. The old guard's forced experiments had created more than one damaged soul seeking healing and understanding. Ashley ran the medical facility, combining traditional medicine with the heart's healing energies. Her presence had proved invaluable as more seekers found their way to us, drawn by dreams and visions they didn't yet understand. Marcus and Chen had formed an unlikely but effective partnership, leading our security operations while maintaining connections with both official and unofficial power structures. They understood better than most the delicate balance between protection and paranoia. I stood in my grandmother's study, my study now, surrounded by the accumulated wisdom of generations of guardians. The heart's energy flowed constantly through me, no longer foreign but as natural as breathing. Through it, I sensed a visitor approaching long before the knock at my door. "Come in, Emma," I called out. The young woman who entered looked nothing like the frightened girl who had arrived 6 months ago, fleeing another organization's attempts to force awakening before its time. The heart's energy had helped heal her, teaching her to understand her gifts rather than fear them. "They found another one," she said without preamble. "A nexus point in Norway. It's starting to wake up." I nodded, already aware through my connection to the heart. The time is coming. More nexus points are activating naturally now, Humanity is beginning to reach the readiness they've been waiting for. Emma sat in the chair across from my desk, absently playing with the pendant that marked her as one of our trained sensitives. Why now? What's changed? The heart's knowledge flowed through me as I considered her question. Understanding is reaching critical mass. Not just scientific understanding, but wisdom. The capacity to know when not to use power, even when we have it. Through the window, I could see Sarah working with a group of new arrivals in the courtyard. They were learning the basics of energy sensing, their movements following patterns older than civilization. The desert taught me something. Essential, I told Emma. When Nathan abandoned me out there, he thought the harsh environment would destroy me. Instead, it stripped away everything that wasn't true, leaving only what was real and essential. That's what the heart does for humanity. Shows us what's real beneath all our illusions of control and power. But some people still want to force it, Emma said softly, touching the scars her own experience had left. They always will. That's why the heart chooses guardians. Not to hoard power, but to protect humanity from its own premature ambitions. To guide rather than control. My phone buzzed, a message from Chen. Another group of old guard loyalists had been detected moving through shell companies, gathering resources. They never seemed to learn, but each failed attempt brought more of their members to understanding. Emma stood, sensing my attention shift. I should get back to training. Sarah's teaching us about energy harmonics today. As she reached the door, she paused. Do you ever regret it? Becoming the guardian? Taking on this responsibility? I thought about everything that had led me here. The betrayal, the pain, the transformation. Through the heart's enhanced senses, I could feel the desert's ancient power, the nexus points slowly awakening around the world, the gradual evolution of human consciousness toward readiness for greater truths. No, I said finally. The price was high, but the purpose is worth it. Everything I lost led me to what I was meant to become. After Emma left, I walked out onto the ranch house porch. The desert stretched away to the horizon, seemingly empty but full of life and power to those who knew how to sense it. Ancient spirits walked these lands, watching humanity's slow growth toward understanding. Ashley joined me, her medical coat, exchanged for comfortable ranch wear. Another busy day ahead, she said, handing me my morning coffee. 3 new sensitives arrived overnight, and Sarah thinks one of them might have natural guardian potential. I know, I smiled. The heart's been watching them since they started their journey here. The sun climbed higher, turning the desert into a sea of light and shadow. Somewhere beneath us, the heart pulsed with ancient energy, connecting to its awakening siblings around the world. A new age was dawning, not with apocalyptic suddenness, but with the gradual, natural progression of true growth. Sometimes I wonder, Ashley said, watching the new arrivals gather for their morning training, what Nathan would think if he could see all this. If he could see what his attempt to destroy you led to. He knows, I said softly. Or at least, he understood at the end. That's why they killed him. Because he finally saw the truth and couldn't pretend anymore. The heart's energy rippled through me, showing glimpses of possible futures. More nexus points would awaken. More people would discover their sensitivity to the ancient energies. And always, there would be those who tried to force evolution before its time. But that was why the heart chose its guardians carefully, selecting those who had been broken and reforged, who understood that true power came from wisdom rather than force. My grandmother had known this, had prepared me through years of desert lessons and hidden teachings. A dust cloud on the horizon marked another arrival, more seekers drawn by dreams and visions looking for understanding. The ranch had become a beacon for those touched by awakening awareness, a place of learning and healing. Sarah emerged from the integration center, her face thoughtful. The energy patterns are changing, she said, joining us on the porch. The heart is communicating more directly now, not just with you, but with all the sensitives. It's like it's preparing us for something, I finished. Through our shared connection to the heart's power, we both felt the shifting currents of possibility. The wind carried the scent of sage and ancient secrets, whispering of changes yet to come. But I was ready for them now, transformed by desert, wisdom, and the heart's guidance into someone who could face any challenge. Nathan had abandoned me in the desert, thinking it would destroy me. Instead, it had led me to my true purpose, my true strength. The betrayal that should have broken me had become the key to understanding powers beyond human comprehension. As I stood there with my chosen family, watching the desert light transform the morning, I felt my grandmother's presence in every grain of sand, every whisper of wind. She had known what I would become, had helped shape me into someone who could guard humanity's path to greater awareness. The heart's energy pulsed through the land, ancient and eternal, waiting for the day when all of humanity would be ready for its teachings. Until then, I would stand guard, protecting both the seekers and those who would rush heedlessly toward power they weren't prepared to handle. The desert had taught me patience, endurance, and the wisdom to know that some journeys couldn't be rushed. The heart had taught me purpose, understanding, and the responsibility of guiding others toward greater truth. Together, they had transformed a moment of betrayal into a lifetime of meaning. And as I felt another nexus point stirring to awareness somewhere across the world, I smiled, knowing that this was only the beginning. Up next, you've got 2 more amazing stories waiting for you. If this tale of desert transformation and ancient powers caught your attention, you won't want to miss what's coming. Just click to continue your journey into extraordinary narratives.